I'm Dana K. White of aslobcomesclean.com and the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life. Okay, so I am talking today about finding a place for everything. Every little thing, every random thing, every last thing. Because this is the issue for a lot of us who struggle to keep our homes under control. And I'm saying we because this is what I used to say. I don't have places for things. I don't know where things should go. I can't put stuff away. Like, people act like that's something easy, and it was really, really hard for me because I was like, I don't have places to put things. So that is a problem that I had to solve. I didn't really know I was solving it in the beginning when I came up with my first decluttering question, which solves this problem completely, but this is what it solves, okay? So I just want to be clear that I will never be one to just quote real flippantly, place for everything and everything in its place, because that is the single most annoying phrase to people like me, to people who are where I once was, of like, I didn't have a place for things. Saying that is not helpful. Okay, because that phrase just made me think, well, then I don't know what to do because that doesn't make sense because I don't have a place for everything, right? Unfortunately, I mean, I wish I could say that that phrase is incorrect. That phrase is actually very correct. It is true, which is the reason that the people who this stuff comes naturally to say it so easily, because yes, it's true. But if you don't know how to make that happen, then it's only frustrating. So how do you make that happen? Well, I have 3 different things that I recently found places for by using my first decluttering question. And I'm gonna talk about those 3 things and how I made that decision and how this decluttering question helped me establish a place and the reason why it's so important for things to have a place, okay? So as far as why is it so important for things to have a place? Well, there's a lot to it, okay? It's super simple, but also very complicated to people like me. The container concept. I talk about that all the time, right? The container concept means that the space that I have is the space that I have. If I try to keep more stuff than I have space for in my home, then there is no hope of my house ever being under control. It is not possible to have a house that's under control and have more stuff than I have space for. Usable, get toable, actual functional space, okay? This means everything needs to have a place. Like, if my house is gonna be under control, then when I pick it up, things need a place to be, to live, okay? This first decluttering question gives me that place. This is how I determine the home for something. Even if it's something that is highly sentimental, even if it is something that with other decluttering strategies would totally make my brain spin out. If I was asking myself, do I like it? The answer is always gonna be yes. But then I'm gonna feel guilty because I'm like, should I like this? Do I really like it? Do I like it for all the right reasons? Whatever. If I'm gonna ask myself if I like it, the answer is, of course I wanna keep it. Right? I love this stuff. That's the reason I brought it into my house. It's cool. It has sentimental value to me. That is not helpful for me because I will keep everything, and I can't keep everything. I just can't. If I try to keep it all, there is no hope of my house ever being under control because there's simply not enough space in my house for all the stuff that I like to actually have a place to be, and it be a real home and not a pile, okay? So I ask myself this question instead of analyzing how I feel about things, instead of considering how much it's worth, anything like, I just go ahead and ask this question because it always serves me well. So, a couple of things. 2 were very sentimental. One was just like, yeah, that's super usable. Like, I will probably use that at some point, okay? But I didn't have a place for any of those things in my home. So I pulled these things out of a box. And the first one was super useful. Like, if I was just asking myself, is this useful Does it deserve to be in my home? Of course, the answer is yes. That doesn't help, right? Because it still needs a place to be. So instead, I ask myself the question, skip all the useful stuff and just say, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? Well, this is a postal scale. I don't sell on eBay anymore, thankfully. That's kind of what got me into the mess, that got me to the point where I started an anonymous slob blog on the internet, which is now turned into this somehow. But that postal scale, it's useful. And I have used it over the years, even after I used to use it all the time. In our old house, I knew exactly where that item went. Like, it was on this specific shelf. I knew exactly where it was. Anytime that I did randomly need it, I knew right where to go. Well, we were in a new house. I didn't have a place where I had ever looked for it before, but it's not a question of where would it be. It's a question of where would I look for this first. So I kind of hold it in my hands and I have this moment of, and I just go, if I had the thought, I know I've got a postal scale and I need a postal scale right now. Where's the first place where I would look for it in this house that I have? And when I ask myself that question, I'm like, well, I would look for it on that shelf in it's like a home office, even though I have a separate office in a different, building out in our field right now. But like in our little home office, I don't know what to call it. See, that's my own advice I'm not following. I haven't named that room yet, which is part of the reason it's a problem still. But I would look for it first on that shelf in there specifically. And so I took it there now. That's the other key. So this first decluttering question, where would I look for it first? It gives me the home. That's how I determine the home. The second part of it, take it there right now. That's not a question, but it's everything for this process. That's the whole entire most crucial thing for this no mess decluttering process that I use, okay? Where I promise myself progress and only progress and never a bigger mess. I take it there now, but by taking it there now, I find out, is that an actual space where it can live? Does it fit in that space? Is there room for it in that space? Taking it there now gets me to that spot and I realize, yes, there's room for it here. I very well could have gotten to that same space and found that it was full of books, in which case I would have to decide, okay, am I willing to get rid of some of these books in order to make the room for this? Or do I realize I actually am not going to keep this? Either way, it's perfectly fine, but I am embracing the reality of the stuff I have, where I would look for it first, and embracing the reality of my actual space that I have in my home. As long as I just say, oh yeah, of course I would totally go looking for this in my house, and I set it aside, or if I just try to remember and I say, oh, I would look for it in that room, so I'll do that later. I don't know for sure if that's actually a real place where it can live, okay? But it was, so I was able to take it there right now, and I'm done with that item, right? So I've given it a home. I have found a place for this item that is not an everyday use item, but it is something that I would go looking for in my house, okay? Next, I had this full-on trinket. I think my mom gave it to me. I love Wizard of Oz. I've collected Wizard of Oz stuff over the years. This is super cute. Whoever gave it to me, thank you very much. I totally remember. I just didn't want to talk about it on the video. But whoever gave it to me was thinking of me when they bought it for me. And it means a lot to me that someone cared enough to get me this cute little, it's a little bit higher end than some of the little trinkety stuff that I get. I mean, like, this was meaningful. Not meaningful enough for me to remember you, but you know what I mean. So I have this item that technically doesn't have a real purpose, but it means something to me. If I let myself say, do I love it? Well, of course I do, and I would just keep it. But if it didn't have a home in my house, it would still be clutter, right? So it has to be in its final resting place in order for it to not be clutter anymore. It needs to either be in its home or the trash or a donate box, okay? So I ask myself the question, if I needed this, where would I look for it first? I didn't remember that I had this item. Okay, that's why I'm not asking the second question first. If I needed this, would it ever occur to me that I already had one? Because that would be really hard. That would stop me in my tracks and make me go, I don't like this, and be done, right? And instead I say, no, I'm gonna ask myself, if I needed this, where would I look for it first? And what popped in my brain was this little built-in shelf in my bathroom area where I still have the wallpaper that I have plans to deal with, but I haven't dealt with yet. I thought, okay, that's where I would look for it first. And so I went and I took it there. Now it's a little thing that holds something. Well, I had just gotten this necklace at Christmas, and I was like, oh yeah, I need a place to put this necklace. Like, I wanted it to have its own special place. So in letting myself say, okay, where would I look for it first? It feels a little, when you're like, I don't know. But I took it there right now. It did fit on the shelf. I was a little concerned that it wouldn't because it's a very narrow shelf, but it fit there. And now I have a place where I put this necklace at night. I get to use something very sentimental, but that sentimental thing is not just floating around my house as clutter. A sentimental thing that I actually use, and it has a real space in my home, a real place to live, place for everything and everything in its place, but it's true, is something that I honor. It's something that I have positive feelings toward every time, or almost every time, that I use it. Okay, sometimes I don't even think about it, but I have a lot of positive feelings about it because it's being used and it has a real place and it's not causing me problems. If it is something that just constantly, every time I'm dealing with a space, well, there's that thing again, and then I'm dealing with another space, well, there's that thing again, those are negative feelings. So even though this was a positive feeling item, it would have, if I didn't give it a real home, if I didn't actually take it there right now, it would have just floated and caused me frustrated feelings, okay? Which is not how I want to feel toward sentimental items, right? And then I had something that had zero purpose, only sentiment. A piece of hair from my 21-year-old, from his first haircut. Or maybe it was the first time I snipped some hair to get it out of his eyes, because that kid had a lot of hair. That kind of stuff will stop me in my tracks. But I don't have to be stopped in my tracks. I just say, I'm gonna ask the question. If I needed a piece of hair from a 21-year-old, where would I look from his first haircut? Where would I look for it first? Because the truth is, it has always grossed me out. It has grossed me out from the time someone gave us that little container at a baby shower. I mean, it has. I thought it was a little bizarre from the very beginning. It was. They're very sweet people. We don't know them, we haven't known them in 20 years. But I just would never go looking for it. Like that one, I can say I would literally never go looking for this item because it's kind of gross. And if we needed something for DNA, that kid now sheds leg hair like nobody's business, and I'm sure I could go pick some up, right? So, I mean, or armpit hair. That's what he always wanted, armpit hair. Anyway, but I mean, like that is not something I would go looking for. So therefore, by asking myself that same question that I'm gonna ask about every single thing, which allows me to keep the things that actually are important to me, it reveals to me that this thing is not important to me. Where otherwise, I would be feeling guilty and feeling weird. And how does somebody throw away such a cute little container, you know, holding a piece of somebody's body in it, right? Like, and if you keep yours, that's perfectly fine. But for me, I just had no desire to do that. As someone who found my teeth in the camera bag that my dad gave me one time, it's just gross, right? Like it was just gross. And I just didn't want that in my house. Now, I will tell you that I did send him a text and said, just curious if you want this hair from 20 years ago. And he said, no. And I said, okay. So you know what I did with it? I did not donate it because that's disgusting. I threw it away. I just threw it away. I didn't even donate the container. I didn't even take the hair out and donate the container because I didn't want to touch it. Even though, you know, I know some of y'all are gonna be like, what's the big deal? It's a big deal to me, and it is. And I just got rid of it and threw it in the trash. And it is entirely possible that there will be a daughter-in-law one day who will think, well, I wish I would have had that. You're welcome. And I am sparing you the difficult decision of, should I keep that? Where would I look for it? In my house, my husband's now however many year old piece of hair. Yeah, I just got rid of it. So asking myself the question, where would I look for this first, is the way I establish a place for everything in my home. Taking it there now helps me learn, is that actually something that can work? Is there room for it? Sometimes taking it there now makes me go, yeah, I don't actually love it that much. It's actually easy to get rid of. But taking it there now helps me embrace the actual real reality of that space of my home. Is there a space for it? Because if my house is going to be under control, unfortunately, there has to be a place for everything. And this is how I establish the place for everything. And it's also the thing that lets me let go of things, because I say there's not a place for that, because there is no place in my home where I would go looking for it. So there's no place for it. Okay. All right. If you are thinking, yes, but even if I go put all the things in the place where I would look for it first, it's still going to be too full, go watch the container concept video. That one explains how that works. It's not fun. Nobody's saying it's fun or easy, but that explains then what you do in that situation. All right. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.